Hi, I'm Coach Amber. Welcome to the Rivero Success Story podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, Coach Dan. He's one of our own. Welcome, Dan.
Hi, thanks, Amber. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so Dan, let's get down to it. What was your life like prior to starting a meat-based diet? Were you having issues, any health concerns?
Yeah, so one of the reasons I got involved in this, kind of went down the rabbit hole in the first place, is because so I'm 38 years old, and since when I was like a teenager and I was in college and stuff, I don't think I really paid much attention to anything. I didn't have like any serious health problems that I knew about or that were like actively nagging me, except I did have really bad acne when I was a kid around those ages, but I never even like connected the two. Of course, like the 3 or 4 different dermatologists I spoke with never once mentioned like, yeah, maybe it's something you're eating that could be helping. It was just like antibiotics, antibiotics, antibiotics. So, but I was blissfully unaware of all this at the time and just kind of like living my life. And I was fairly active, so I was reasonably lean. And then when I was finishing up college, I remember thinking like, well, I'm, getting older now. I'm going to be in my in my 20s here. I better like, I should adopt some sort of like health and fitness like rules and regimens and stuff like that. I don't, I've always been kind of body conscious, and it just it was the kind of thing that I had the motivation to do it ahead of time, which is lucky in a way. So I did end up going down basically the paleo, the like primal, like the Marxist and primal blueprint route. In my 20s, I was into that, and I was doing what is it called? I was doing the P90X beach body workouts, and that was my gateway into like sort of like eating right and fitness. And I will, I will give that DVD product. It's the, at least I will give it the credit for motivating me to like, I was like, oh, this is what it's like to actually work out, reasonably hard, and to work out 7 days a week, which may be a good or terrible idea, but it was kind of a crash course for me. And like along the way, I was tweaking things. I was eating like oats for breakfast, and oats and yogurt and things like, just general things. I thought like, oh, this is a healthy thing to do. I was having like wraps for lunch with a lot of like black beans and like those baked chips instead of fried one. I thought I was making healthy decisions kind of thing, but eventually I just kind of I did transition into primal paleo from there, I guess, just from like looking things up online and doing my own like health research. And I thought like, oh, I guess I shouldn't be eating, grains and beans and these kind of things at all. I better switch it up. And I kind of transitioned into a very, very vegetable heavy version of like a paleo diet, where I was doing the big ass salads like for lunch and then again for dinner. And for a while I was very on board with that. But yeah, after a few years of doing that, it started to become a real struggle for me. And that's kind of the main point actually, where I think like things kind of got a little strange on me. I started to have some serious IBS issues. I started to develop like some orthorexia, I guess would be the best word to describe it. Or I just started to become very like paranoid about everything I was eating. And I had, I suppose I had some mental fog, and I started to be cold all the time. I think, because I was just eating like mostly like leafy greens and stuff like that. I was probably not eating quite enough and everything. And I just had, I was just thinking like, wow, I'm trying to get healthier and healthier and healthier, and I have the best of intentions here, but I'm feeling like worse and worse. And, you know, at at the end of that road, I just thought like, I thought like, well, this is the best thing I know how to do. What else can I do? So I was really, I'm a very tenacious person, and or a stubborn person, if you want to put it in a negative way, but I hang on to things. So I kept doing it, and I kept trying like little tweaks, but nothing was really helping with the IBS and the mood problems and the like cold hands and feet and stuff like that. So I needed something else. I didn't know what exactly that was, but then I heard, so kind of a long time ago at this point, it was probably 2017, maybe early 2018. I had actually heard one of the first interviews that Dr. ShawnBaker did. It was back on a podcast called Corporate Warrior. I don't think this podcast even exists anymore, but it was like a high intensity training and lifestyle kind of podcast. And he was talking about, breaking these rowing records, eating. I think was maybe 6 months into it at the time. It was when he was fairly new too. And I remember it was the first time I was introduced to the concept of carnivore and of like, I just remember specifically the phrase zero carb coming up in that conversation. And I thought like, that's crazy. Like I find it like I'm trying to make sure I'm under 100 every day. And that's a struggle. Like, what do you mean zero? Like, that seems like that can't possibly be a thing. And yeah, at the time I kind of like brushed it aside a little bit, or I just thought like, well, that's like a hardcore thing to do, but that's not like a reasonable thing for like everyday people to do, and kind of move past it, but something made it stick in my mind, and I believe he was on there a second time, and then he did Rogan, and like other people came out, and I kind of researched it more, and Amber O'Hearn at the time had done quite a few podcasts. Like there wasn't a lot of information out there yet, even at the beginning of 2018 or so, but it was starting to like percolate through a little bit. And eventually I just thought like, well, maybe this is exactly what I need to try to like fix some of these issues. I need to get over my like insecurity around food, and I need to like refeed a little bit, and I need to try to do something to like normalize my digestion a little bit. So yeah, end of May, I think it was right around Memorial Day actually of 2018. I just one day after I was finished with work for the day, I just said like, you know what, I'm going to go to the grocery store and I'm going to buy, a couple pounds of ground beef. I'm going to buy some eggs. Anything that was kind of on the animal foods list. I just kind of, I remember just thinking like, I'm just going to get it. I got butter. I got like some sharp cheddar cheese, just anything I thought like what like let's just have like a feast. Let's at least do this once. I'm going to do this like today and see how it happens. And I remember it was like such a fun experience where I just thought like, wow, for the first time in a long time, I'm just eating like meat and eggs with cheese on them and like butter in the pan instead of having like a salad for lunch. And it felt kind of, it was very intense because it was probably kind of a shock to my body and stuff, but it also felt very good. And like something about it just made me think like, okay, I'm going to keep this idea in there. So I did kind of ease into it after that. I mean, I did like this carnivore feast, and then I did back up a little bit, and, if for no other reason than I still had like a fridge full of like spinach and mushrooms and all these other things too. And I was like, well, I'll kind of incorporate them into some omelets and stuff like that, and finish my avocados and all those things. But once that was gone, I just kind of was like, well, I just don't think I'm going to buy those anymore. I'm going to move into it. So that's how I first got here. And yeah, so it's been 3.5 years, and I haven't really looked back since. So
That's awesome. And oh, the simplicity. Ah, that's what I love best
Right.
about it. That's why I stay, I'll be honest, because it's just so easy. Okay, so the next question I want to ask you is you kind of talked a little bit about how you started, but what actual foods did you eat and how has that evolved? And also, did you have any transitional issues?
Right. Yeah, so it did evolve quite a bit in a few ways because I had uh, not really a lot of transitional issues to speak of, other than just, like I said, it was a little bit of a shock to suddenly be eating like so much more like nutrient dense food than I had been eating before, and I was not exactly used to that. So I did, experience a little bit of digestive upset for sure when I went from eating meat like, in 3 ounce portions at a time to suddenly eating like 2+ pounds of it per day. It took me a little while to be like, okay, this is normal for me again. So, but I did kind of expect that. That made some sense to me. Um, but it wasn't too bad because I had been like fairly low carb before. So, the like I didn't really have like any of the keto carnivore flu sort of things transitioning. So mercifully, that was not so bad. But I also, like I said, kind of at the beginning, anything and everything was kind of on the table for me. I did a lot of like bouncing around. I had like pork shoulder steaks and sausage and anything that seemed good to me that had animals involved in it, basically. At the store, I would pick it up and bring it home. And I think that was probably important because of the transition. I just think for a few months there, I was not really prepared to like really zero in on like what was good for me to eat, and like you said yourself, like what was like simple and doable on a daily basis. So I would say that for probably a good 3 months I ate it all. I ate chicken and I ate pork and I ate lots of ground beef, ground lamb, lots of eggs, lots of cheese, lots of butter, um, sardines too, like canned sardines, salmon, stuff like that. Yeah, and some liver too. I was kind of already, I was already, this is weird, but I was already like kind of a liver fan. So that was something that I didn't have a problem like becoming acclimated to. I don't know. I used to have liver sausage for lunch when I was a kid. So something about my taste buds were already used to it. And somehow I didn't get like beat up in school for bringing liver sausage sandwiches to lunch every day. I don't know how that's possible, but I definitely remember having those as a kid. So that I don't know. I lucked out there in that organ meats weren't that strange to me when I transitioned. So I was having all of those things for a while, but definitely over time, like the simplicity bug kicked in, like the minimalist factor kicked in, and just the fact that I kept experimenting and I wasn't, I was still having some of these digestional issues. Like I said, some IBS was happening, and I thought like I need to, I need to, I need to hone in on like what's actually good for me to eat. So I slowly kind of got rid of all those things. I suspected that like maybe dairy was not like something I should be having on at least a daily basis. Um, and so I largely took that out. I pork and chicken I kind of did away with for the most part. I still have chicken like once in a great while, just because sometimes that's just exactly what I want or something. Um, but I haven't had pork in like since then. Probably I haven't had pork in a few years now. I just thought like this is not. I didn't. It's not my favorite meat anyway, and it wasn't. It was very cost effective, so I do like that about it. But other than that, I was like, I could do away with this, and I just wanted simplicity. Like I said, like in my mind, I just thought like this is like one of the beautiful parts about this way of eating is that do not have to like make a shopping list, and you do not have to, like, and that's something that really attracted me about it in the first place. So the more I got into it and more confident that I got, the more I was just buying like whatever steak was on sale, and then like the cheapest ground beef I could find, and basically just mixing it up between either ground beef or whole cuts of red meat. Um, Still occasionally would like have like some sardines or salmon here and there, but even that over time, I don't really do that very often anymore, because I just don't really care about them. I mean, I'm not the first one to come on here and say something like that, but that same thing totally happened to me, where after a while I was just like, I don't really have a taste for this when I could just have another burger instead. Like, I'd rather do that. That seems like it would be much more satisfying than, because some of those foods, I think they maybe taste good in the moment, but they don't really fill me up as much as, as red meat does for the most part. So these days I eat a lot of beef, like I said, ground beef, and strip steaks, T-bones, like ribeye if it's on sale, but not super often. But some more obscure things too, like back ribs and like neck bones, and like things I can find that are cheaper that I can put in the oven and just let them fall apart in there. So that's kind of where I'm at now, like mostly beef. And eggs are a very rare thing for me these days too, honestly. If anything, I'm cracking open an egg raw and saving the yolk and like putting that on top of the steak and giving the rest of it to my dog, kind of thing. Like, I just don't really cook and eat eggs anymore. I just like to use the yolks as like a steak sauce essentially. So that's kind of where I've transitioned to. And I find that like so sustainable. I honestly think that there's so much freedom in the simplicity of it. I think that sounds like very contradictory, but that's something I would, if there's like something I could like grab people by the shoulders and tell them that I don't think they already know about this, that isn't about like health specifically. It's about like, I would say like, oh, but you don't know how wonderful it is to when you truly pare things down this far. Like, you would think that would become more restrictive to you. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, that when I was doing paleo, I felt like I was becoming orthorexic, where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. And you would think that doing an animal-based diet or carnivore diet would be like even worse, but it's not. Somehow you like pass this barrier of like what your whole mindset changes. And once you go that far down and you say like, no, I'm just going to eat meat, like it's like all this baggage falls away from you, and it becomes like so simple that all the confusion leaves. At least that's, your results may vary, I suppose, but that was my experience, where like, instead of comparing labels to things and being like, is this good? Is this organic? Is this blah, blah, blah? Like, it was just like, nope, I literally am just not even gonna look at anything else in the store anymore, because I buy these like 2 or 3 things, I fill up my backpack with them. I go every couple days, and because I like to buy stuff pretty fresh. So, and I live pretty close to a store, but I do like routine trips and just buy a few days worth of meat at a time, and I'm out of there, and I love it. So there's so much less decision fatigue, and it seems to be serving me really well. So
I agree. I think I would sum it up as freedom.
right.
It's that awesome feeling. Okay, so Dan, tell us what has improved in your life since going meat-based.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess the first thing is, like I said, just like that food freedom, where I suddenly felt like I wasn't making choices anymore. I mean, I just talked about that for a few minutes. So that would be the first thing that comes to mind. Just that lovely feeling of being like, okay, I know exactly what I'm going to eat today and tomorrow, and I'm not like thinking about trying to make cauliflower seem like it's a pizza crust and all this sort of dumb stuff. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say shouldn't pass judgment on it like that. But, you know, like all these things that for me, I think were just more trouble than they were worth. So that was great. Like it really just made me feel so much more at peace with what I was eating and made me feel comfortable. Just it made eating to satiety a lot easier too, because I suddenly thought I knew quite a bit more. Like, well, if I'm eating a bowl of ground beef and I'm still hungry for another one, then I'm probably still actually hungry. I started to trust myself quite a bit more, especially the more seasoned I got with it, where I would just, whereas before I might think like, oh, I'm hungry, but I'm full at the same time because of, you know, probably because of all the fiber, the like large volume of foods that I was eating at the time. So that was an improvement too, where I thought like, you know, it still took me a while. I will admit that it took a while to exactly like feel hunger and fullness cues. And that's a thing that, you know, that's still ongoing. That's still a thing where like I will have months where I feel great about that. And then like a week or two where I'm suddenly like, oh, I'm hungry all the time, you know? So I'm not saying I have this all like in the bag or anything, but like, I do think by and large it's a lot better where I think if I'm still hungry, I'm going to eat. And I'm not so worried about like whether it's like being like falsely caused by me, like, you know, I'm hungry because I just ate like a salad and an apple or something and that wasn't enough or it wasn't right. So I think if I'm eating like dense food like this and I still want more to eat, like that's a pretty good signal that I should have more to eat. So that again is just like, that's freedom to me. That imparts a lot of peace to me, where I feel like, okay, I'm not fighting against myself or trying to police myself around food so much. So that was really important to me. And like I said, is ongoing, like, you know, disordered eating type things is that's a thing that like you have to keep in mind. If that's a feeling that you've had, you know, you kind of do always have to watch yourself afterwards for a little bit. So, but carnivore has made it so much easier for me to trust like what I really want and like how hungry am I really or how full am I really. So yeah, decision fatigue reduced, disordered eating thoughts calmed down. What else? I would say physically, I definitely was able to sort of refeed a little bit from this like rather malnourished place that I got to, eating salad every day, all day. So that was cool. And because it was like the right kind of food, quote unquote, I gained weight. I definitely did gain some weight, but in like a healthy way that I started to become quite a bit stronger. Like I said, I've been like into working out. I've been like a workout guy since my P90X days, but I do totally remember I used to kind of hate it. I used to do it because I thought like this is a thing that's got to get done. And like I said, I am a fairly disciplined person, but I didn't like it. I remember just a lot of days I would sit there for 10 or 15 minutes before I had to start because I just could not motivate myself to start. And I just was fighting these battles with myself about like, oh, I don't really want to like get some exercise in today. I'm just tired, blah, blah, blah. But these days that doesn't really happen. These days I feel like I do still exercise like pretty much every day. And it's, you know, not like hours and hours every day or anything, but I like to do something every day. And I don't feel like that's too much for me. Like suddenly that's not an issue necessarily. I feel like, okay, I feel good about that. Like I have some up days and down days energy wise, I suppose, but by and large, I think like I've been able to like put on some more muscle. I definitely have more muscle than I did a few years ago. And yeah, energy throughout the workouts and throughout the day after them is much better and much more sustained and consistent. So that's been a big change. And then the last thing I'll mention is just the intestinal issues. I have had some ongoing problems with that. My digestion is very sensitive, and I've had a few gut infections. I've had some GI infections. I had C. diff a couple times, and that's kind of a rough thing to deal with. But I've had that. I had that very early on when I just started carnivore, and I had it again very recently. Actually, it kind of like recurred on me, and this time I remember the first time that happened to me, I kind of like, you're very sick when that kind of thing is happening typically. And I kind of like went off of strict carnivore a bit because I was just like, I don't know what to eat. I'm having diarrhea all the time. Like, and I know that I kind of veered a little bit. And this most recent time when I dealt with it, I had much more confidence about it. And I like was literally like, I need all the energy I can get right now. Like, I know I'm going through something, but I'm just going to keep eating beef, and I'm going to keep eating lamb, and I'm going to, and it was much less severe when I dealt with it the past time I dealt with it. And I felt like I had this like strength to do all of my work throughout the day and regular things throughout the day. And I had like a much less severe overall case of it. So I thought like, well, that's definitely progress. And when that's not happening, I think like, that's a specific case, obviously, but by and large, like my digestion has improved a lot, where I'm just not thinking about that nearly as much as I used to. And the volume is, the volume is decreased in a good way, where like I don't, I'm no longer eating so many things that I'm just like not getting anything out of and not digesting at all. So it feels good when everything you're eating is kind of being put to use for the most part. So again, I still got some work to do in that department, honestly. And that's something I like keep a close eye on as well all the time. And it's just like digestive health and gut health and all those things. So, but I definitely have experienced like both sides of it. And I think having this diet in my toolkit for when something is like amiss down there is very helpful, because it actually is, it really can like keep your energy up and keep it keeps the rest of you feeling so good that you feel like you can weather like, some sort of illness that's happening to you. So it's been really good overall and very positive in that regard.
That's awesome. I love hearing positive stories. Okay, so since you are a member of Revero, can you give us some benefits that you've personally noticed and have utilized with Revero?
Right, sure. Yeah. So I like I said, it's been a few years, and for the first few years, definitely for the first year or so I was doing this, there was nobody to talk to. And that's a little lonely, I think. Like, so that doesn't seem like it would be that big of a deal, but and sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is. And if you're talking to like a family member or a friend or something, and they just kind of look at you like you're crazy, that can feel like a little ostracizing and stuff. So like Rivero was really helpful when I joined, just because it was nice to know that there was a lot of people out there that were also exploring like this lifestyle and like this way of eating. And it was nice to connect with people. And I remember when I first joined, I hopped into one of the morning meetings that Shawn was having, and he was very nice, and gave me time to like speak and tell my story a little bit like right away. And that made like, I didn't expect that at all either. And it made me feel like really included like right away. So yeah, I think that the resources are great. The ability to find doctors that you can work with in your area, because that can be a real confusing thing for a lot of people too. So just all the databases that are here, and the forums, and the Zoom meetings that you can join if you'd like to support. I think that's probably the best thing about it, is really the ability to like sort of reach out and connect with other people that are out there kind of going through the same things you are, because nobody's story is like super linear with this. I think, it's, I don't know. I think sometimes we might like mistakenly think that like so and so, tried this diet and it was great, and that's the end of the story. It was from point A to point B, and it's like, it's not exactly like that. People have questions. Like I said, I did a bunch of things that maybe I was eating a few things for sure that were counterproductive, or doing meal timings that were a little counterproductive, or like there's like all these like subtle things that is, when you get farther into it, you may want to tweak and mess with. And it's a very valuable resource, I think, to just like have a community of people out there that you can ask questions to, share stories with. I can't imagine that it would be anything but helpful to all of us to be able to like, crowdsource our information in some way. So I think that's what you guys are doing at Rivero, and that's very powerful. So
I agree with that 100%. Absolutely. And community is everything. Okay. I have one more question for you since you are a coach. Can you let everybody know about your coaching style? What can somebody expect if they come to you as a coach?
right. Yeah. Thanks. So I am the first to say that I'm, like I said a few times in this conversation, I am like a work in progress. So one of the things I think I bring to the table is some empathy, honestly, because I've been through all the things. I've been doing this for a while, and I've done a lot of different versions of carnivore. I've eaten, all animal-based foods on the table. I've eaten like beef and salt only. I've eaten tons of fat for a while. I've eaten not very little, but I've eaten like moderate fat and lots of protein for a while. I've done, 3+ meals a day. I've done 2 meals a day, 1 meal a day. I've done, like I have a lot of time doing this, and I've made a lot of, mistakes, or a lot of tweaks, or whatever you'd like to call them. And I like to think I bring those to the coaching sessions, where I'm not just going to say like, so here's the plan, like stick to it. Yeah. Like this is cut and dry. If it doesn't work for you, then something's wrong with you. Like that's not, not that anybody else would say that either, but I think like I can be pretty empathetic about like where you're coming from. And I think another thing that is very important to me is just the lifestyle in general. So I think food is a very important part of the conversation, but sometimes we need to remember that it's important to talk about sleep, to talk about exercise. Like I said, I am like a pretty passionate advocate of exercise. I've been designing my own workouts like for several years now, and I do them at home. I don't use fancy equipment. I don't rely on coaches and gyms and things like that. So I think I'm very good at pointing out a few things that people can do in their daily lives that are pretty simple, but they can be game changers in the health and wellness department. So I like to bring those into the conversation too. I don't exactly want to talk about just food. And then finally, I guess I would say that I am pretty open about having like issues with some disordered eating in the past. And like, I think that's a thing that a lot of us struggle with or have struggled with. And I don't think it's the kind of thing that like you struggle with once and then it's never a problem again. But I do think it's the kind of thing that we don't like to discuss all that often, because a lot of people just do have questions about like, am I overeating? Am I undereating? Like, am I able to trust my appetite? Am I trusting my signals? Like, And that's just kind of a way of talking that I'm very familiar with, because I've been through all that and I have sympathy for all that. And I just like to bring everything I've got to these sessions. I mean, like, you can probably tell just from our conversation today that I like to throw a lot of things out there. Like I'm a very thoughtful person, if I do have to say so, and I will not just give you like a one and done kind of solution and never follow up or something. So I truly want to help anybody who I can help with any pointers I can. And I don't think that we all need to be perfect and go straight from 0 to 100, like I said before. And I'm like very, very eager and very willing to help people get there. So yeah, if anybody wants to look me up and work with me, they can find me with all the other coaches on that page, and that would be awesome. So looking forward to it.
Well said, Dan. So y'all, if you're looking for a coach, give Coach Dan a try. And Dan, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Thanks, Amber. Thanks so much for having me. This was really fun.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, you
Bye,
too.
Dan.
Bye.
Join Rivero.health for a 30-day free trial to get access to live Q&A with VIP guests, social community meetings, member discounts, low-carb healthcare providers list, forum, workouts, monthly challenges, early access to podcasts, recipes, carnivore diet guide, fasting guide, shred guide, and much more.